Welcome to this Windows and Computer channel, and I wanted to talk about, we talked about the future of Windows 10, where we are going at, and we know that there's going to be Windows 10 versions at least until the end of next year, and of course there will be more than that as we go on. But there's a few things that are interesting in there. So this week, when there was a Microsoft event, one of the interesting aspects of this is that it actually showed us that Microsoft is moving beyond Windows. And there's several things showing us that Windows isn't as important as it was. Now let's be fair, Windows does still bring in quite a lot of money to Microsoft. But in the whole Microsoft ecosystem, Windows is now a very small chunk of the money when you compare it to everything else. And this week we had two things that showed us this. Apart from a small little moment where they talked about Windows 10 X that was for dual screen devices, there was no talk of Windows at all. And a lot of you have actually replied to me and said, I was surprised that they didn't talk about Windows. I was surprised they didn't talk about 19H2. Well, I think that is exactly the thing they want. Stop talking about Windows as much as possible. The other thing that happened that kind of shows us that Windows might not be that thing anymore that they always want to use is the introduction of the Surface Duo, that foldable phone that isn't running a version of Windows. It's not a Windows phone anymore. It's a Android phone. So I'll be running whatever Android 10 or something that is available then with Microsoft apps in them. So they are actually focusing a lot more on Microsoft apps within Android devices than they are focusing on Windows itself now. So this is kind of an interesting aspect. And the last bit of news that actually did give us a interesting outlook. Satya Nadella gave a interview this week, just after the event, and he actually did say that he's now looking at a Microsoft that has moved beyond Windows. So it's a Microsoft that has devices, a Microsoft that has apps within Android and other ecosystem. It's a Microsoft that isn't centered about Windows anymore. So this is interesting also to check out that information because it means that, and they did move the Windows team now to another sphere of the Microsoft ecosystem. They Terry Myerson, that was the guy behind Windows for a long time, was kind of pushed out because no more Windows to go to. It's not just Windows is not its own thing anymore. It's integrated with other parts of what is Microsoft basically. Now, of course, you might be thinking, oh, so Windows is going to stop at some point. We're going forward, and is Windows going to be here? And we're going to be in 2020 in a couple of months. I mean, if you've been like me, I'm a 50-year-old guy. I've been using Windows since Windows 3.1. And of course, Windows was a major thing. It was big at 3.1. It was huge at Windows 95 and then Windows 98 and all these versions, Windows XP, Windows 7 was still a big thing. But now we're at Windows 10, an evolving system. And the evolving system where Microsoft has repeated many times that this is the last version of Windows. Does those of you that still think Windows 11 or Windows 12 will come soon, well, just look at that. Already they're kind of not talking about Windows much. So there's really no incentive to do a Windows 11 or 12 or whatever. They're going to continue tweaking Windows. I mean, it's still a lot of computers. There's, over 900 million computers running Windows 10. They're still using that 1.5 billion PCs around the world running Windows. So they can't tomorrow morning say it's over. This is the last version, the last update. we're going to continue with security updates until this year and blah, that's fini. It's over. That's not the way it's going to be. It's, they're still going to work on Windows 10 for years to come. Yet, as Windows shrinks in importance, we are probably starting in 2020 the decade where Windows might at some point be something of the past several years from now. This is going to be interesting. I mean, when Windows 10 started in 2015, every Windows version technically has a 10-year life cycle. So Windows 10 life cycle would be 10 years up to 2025. And actually, those of you that are certain hardware that can be updated, Microsoft had said we are going to continue to give you security updates until 2025 on some of those machines. But it's obvious that now we're moving into a post-Windows world, and that slowly things are going to change. And now with the fact that Microsoft is embracing Linux more by having the Windows subsystem for Linux, we hear that Microsoft Edge Chromium might actually have a Linux version, which is kind of interesting. Plus, for the first time, the introduction of a phone made by Microsoft but running on Android is also saying, let's go to diversification and use whatever is coming up in the future. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.